Hey, what's up, everybody? Brant here to talk about some Spider-Man. You guys know I am a huge Spider-Man fan, and today or yesterday, I guess now, I went to see Spider-Man: Far From Home. And I know before I even get into this that everybody is like ready for Stranger Things to drop, and that's where your focus is, or you're in bed because tomorrow's a holiday and you want to enjoy it. But either way, I thought I would pop up on here and real quick just give my thoughts about Spider-Man: Far From Home and some of the implications. Talk about a few spoilers, and just that's it. Just share my thoughts with you guys. So um, I thought, just as a broad overview of the movie, I thought it was a really good movie. I thought you had a lot of great character moments with Peter and his classmates and his friends. You had this really interesting little side plot with Ned, which I'll get into, and then you had the main plot of the movie with Mysterio, which I thought played out really well, and you had the follow ups from the MCU films, and then of course you have the post credit scene, which bring the whole thing together. So it was a very solid movie, a very good movie for me. I actually loved it. I have very few complaints, if any, really. Um, well, maybe I would have liked to have seen more of MJ in it, but I thought they handled that whole thing well. Uh, okay, I was just seeing if I had a comment there. Um, yeah, so the first thing, I mean, I guess I asked the question in the title of this: is Peter the new Tony? And they kind of play with that throughout the movie, kind of doing the parallels between Peter and Tony. You have Happy Hogan there, and Peter receives these glasses, and it's like, okay, it kind of gives him uh, some power. I'll say, as far as Tony Stark goes, it gives him a higher responsibility and everything, and it kind of plays into the main plot of the story as well. Um, but let's backtrack because I don't want to spoil too much before I just give general thoughts. As far as Peter and the way that he acted throughout the film, I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more responsible because that's the thing with Spider-Man, with Peter Parker, that he is the guy that always feels that responsibility, and I feel like there was a little bit too much of I just want to be a normal kid and don't want all this. And I don't think that's at the core of Spidey. And I get it, but he's been in all these big battles, big wars, and he blipped out and came back. And I think he's past that point. So that was really my only main complaint for the entire movie, was the way that was handled. But that aside, I like Peter's personality here. I like the way that he interacts with his friends and everything. I love the cute little plan he had to get MJ alone and give her this gift and all this stuff, and uh, and the fact that it never worked out the way that he wanted it to work out, because that's very real. You make all these grand plans and it just falls apart, and you have to kind of wing it in the end. Um, are they turning Spider-Man into Iron Man? A little bit, Frank. Honestly, honest Frank leaves that comment. A little bit they are. Um, And I'll talk about that in a minute. As far as Mysterio, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was really good. I loved the way it came together. I was kind of worried about where they were headed with it, what if they were completely changing the character here. But then then the revelation comes out and it makes sense, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's Mysterio. That is perfect. The CGI, the special effects of his illusions was brilliant. Not so much like the elemental stuff that you've seen in the trailers, but when he's going after Spidey, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that looked cool. That looked like something straight out of the comic where Spidey's walking through halls upside down and all this stuff, and it was really well done. The stuff with May and Happy, I thought at first I was like, okay, this is a little weird, but then towards the end of the movie, it's like, okay, that's kind of fun the way they twisted it and played with it. And Ned and Betty, I mean, in the comics, these two have gotten together. Ned Leeds and Betty Brant. So it's like you see them get together, and then just the way that whole relationship kind of came to be and left. It's just very fun and very interesting. These movie writers are idiots changing the costumes and things that are different from the comic books. You know what? I don't think it's stupid because Spider-Man, his costume constantly changes, even in this movie. Um, and it kind of makes sense because it gets destroyed, and he's got Tony Stark's tech at his disposal. So it makes sense the way that his costumes keep changing, and they even show it in the movie. He actually has multiple costumes in the movie. And I think they have to make it more interesting for on screen. That's my opinion. I get where you're coming from with that, but I like the costumes in the MCU. Always have. So that's we're going to differ on that. So let's get into some spoilers because there's some stuff I need to talk about. And if you haven't seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, I'm going to warn you. I'm going to spoil it right here, right now, because it's some big stuff. All right. So the main plot obviously centers around Mysterio, and it opens up with Mysterio kind of being the hero. He claims to be Quentin Beck from another universe where his universe or his world was destroyed by these elementals. So he is fighting the elementals. He's got Nick Fury and Shield helping him, and they seek out Spider-Man to help them as well. Happens to be things are going on in Europe. Spider-Man happens to be in Europe because of a school trip. And so that's kind of what kicks it off. Spider-Man he's ghosting Nick Fury, which Nick Fury is not too happy about. And so he gets involved in the plot and everything, and he has to keep running away from his class. And of course, that's adding all kinds of suspicion. Meanwhile, he's got this rivalry with this other kid fighting for MJ's affection. So it's kind of fun. And it's not Flash. It's not anybody. It's just some random kid. But that whole thing is fun, and throughout the whole movie, Spider-Man is battling with: do I want a normal life or do I want to be this hero? And obviously, ultimately, he comes out to be the hero. Honest Frank says they killed Iron Man and made Captain America old. Yeah, I mean, they took Thor's hammer away and blinded his eye. Well, I think he got his eye back, right? And as far as Cap and Iron Man, it's because they didn't want to do the movies anymore. Let's be honest. That's the actors. They're getting older. They want to do other things. That had nothing to do with the writers and directors. It was just they wanted out. So I mean, you got to figure out a way to make that work, right? Or you recast, which I don't think they wanted to do quite yet. But it's not everybody. You can't please everybody, right? I should write superhero movies. Well, go for it. Get into superhero movies. Write some superhero movies. Maybe you'll make one that's really cool. I don't know, but me, I think the MCU is fantastic. It's like I love the MCU. I've watched them multiple times, and especially Spider-Man. Like I said, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. But anyway, so the way that they twist Mysterio in this, it was really clever because going backtracking to the glasses that Peter gets. He gets handed these glasses that kind of give him an AI. They call it Edith because it stands for something that was kind of clever. But it's basically Friday from the comics kind of. It's this AI, this really smart AI, and Peter's got all this power. And, the first thing he does is attack one of his fellow students that's trying to hit on MJ. And then he realizes, that's really bad and stupid. And then he's like, he doesn't want this responsibility. So he gives it away to Mysterio, who he now respects and admires and all this stuff and thinks he should be the next Tony Stark instead of himself and that kind of thing. So he gave away this power. So I was like, okay, that was really stupid, Pete. But and it plays out. Obviously, that was Mysterio's whole plan to begin with, and now he's got control of all these drones and satellites and all the tech, Stark tech, and you find out that he used to work for Stark and all this stuff, and that's when he really comes out as, we finally understand who he is, and Pete has to go up against him, and then the real illusion work begins at play, and Peter doesn't know what's going on. He gets hit by a train. All this crazy stuff is going on. Meanwhile, he's like darting in and out of his class and trying to hit on MJ. and Betty and Ned have this weird relationship going on that they developed on the plane, and now they're in love and madly in love. And by the end of the movie, it's like we decided just to be friends, and this is like what? It was just hilarious. That whole thing, and Flash the whole time is like live streaming everything, and that's kind of how they track Spidey at one point. They should have recast. Well, maybe they should have. Maybe they will. They killed off Jennifer Lawrence's character too. Yeah, I mean that was Fox, but yeah, that wasn't technically in the MCU. But yeah, they did kill her off. I actually haven't seen that movie yet, so I mean I assumed from the trailer that they did, but yeah, I get what you're saying, and eventually they probably will recast once they get into the point where they want to start rebooting these things. But for now, I think they wanted to go in a different direction. So to each their own, right? So that was pretty cool. The whole battle with Mysterio and the way that Spider-Man figured it out. And the thing I did love about this, and yes, I get that they're trying to make Pete a little bit of Tony, but they played on that too. He was like, I can't be the next Tony, and Happy tells him, you'll never be the next Tony. You can't live up to that. He couldn't live up to that, and I love that. But at the same time, when Pete's designing his suit and doing the whole thing with the thing and with the computer and like moving parts around and designing it, and Happy is looking at him, and he sees it. He sees Tony in him. He sees that influence, but he's at the same time he's his own person. And the thing I did love about this is that Pete was smart in this movie. And you don't often see that in the Spider-Man movies, how smart Pete is, but we know it. I mean, he is a scientist. He is very intelligent. And we see that completely here. And I love that they played into that fact about Pete. The writers are better off following what the comic book stories are. Okay, I disagree with you to a degree on that. I think they should be inspired by the comic books, but not follow the comic book stories to a T, because that would just be boring. We've already read those, right? I want to see I wanted to see Civil War, right? And we got that. I want to see stuff like Secret Invasion or Avengers Disassembled or things like that. I would love to see those I'd love to see the Kree-Skrull War, but I want to see it done in a different way than I've seen before, because I've already seen that, right? That's my opinion on it. We'll agree to disagree on that one. The stuff with Nick Fury, that had an interesting impact towards the end of the movie. And this is where some real spoilers come into play, because there were 2 credit scenes. One of them played into the next Spider-Man movie, and the other played into the larger MCU. Now, the Spider-Man one very cool thing, I cannot remember the name of the actor, but J. Jonah Jameson is back. Same actor from the Tobey Maguire movies. Oh my God, I loved that. But the big thing is Peter Parker's outed. Everybody knows who he is now. And that's going to be major implications going forward for Spider-Man. It's basically the aftermath of Civil War, or during Civil War, and that whole thing. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with the next movie going forward with Pete. Now he's not only is he out, but he's like public enemy number 1, because he's thought of as a murderer. It's crazy, right? And then the MCU, you see Nick Fury on a space station, which they're kind of hinting towards Sword, and it's all the Skrulls and everything. So he was never on Earth. He was being impersonated by a Skrull. And yeah, it was the good ones from Captain Marvel, but it plants the seeds that you could do that. You could do the Secret Invasion stuff, and that's what I want to see. That's what I want to happen. But I thought both of those end credit scenes were just phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what happens next. But as far as if this is a good follow-up to Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought in many ways it was, because that was very much kind of a passing of the torch in a way, but at the same time it was like him coming into his own and kind of acclimating to these powers and his abilities and his place in the world. Now this one, he's just gone through this traumatic event with Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and then coming into this, and he's trying to get his semblance of life back together, and he just wants to go have fun after all this major stuff. And I get that part of it, and so you get him reconnecting with Ned and MJ, and just kind of living that, and you have some fun scenes with the whole class in Europe, which I thought was a nice added humor section of the movie. All the stuff that happened with his classmates was fun. Um, so in that regard, I think it was a good follow up to that. We just didn't see a whole lot of Pete's personal life, so I hope the next movie focuses back on the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in Queens and in the larger New York area. That's kind of what I want the next film to focus down on. But I still thought it was a good follow up. As far as a follow up to Avengers Endgame, yeah, I mean, it's the aftermath of Tony's death in that movie, and Pete kind of having to pick up and take on that responsibility of not so much being the next Pete, I mean, the next Tony, but kind of just picking up that legacy of responsibility and of kind of being the, as Clinton puts it, the smartest guy in the room kind of thing. And, kind of stepping up to the plate and being bigger than he is. Because, Spider-Man is the iconic character of the Marvel Universe, right? He's that key character. He's your everyman, your relatable character, that you're down to earth person that you can connect to. But at the same time, he's this next level intelligence, next level power set. So he is an important key character in the Avengers. Yeah, he's just a kid, but he's done these huge things already. So he's a linchpin of the Marvel Universe. So obviously he has to step up and take the reins to that. And I think going forward, you're going to see a little bit more of that in the larger MCU. But I hope in the Spider-Man films, they kind of focus away from that now a little bit and just kind of focus on the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and his own rogues gallery. That's kind of what I want to see. But I thought it was a fitting aftermath of Endgame for Pete. Maybe not so much for the larger MCU, but you did get to see that with the Skrulls and with Nick Fury at the end, and Happy Hogan being there, and the references to Tony Stark, and that's how Mysterio came to be and got tied into the whole thing. So I thought it was fitting the way that they tied it all in together. What's up, Chris? I can't wait to see what they do next. Yeah, it's gonna be a ride, man. Honest Frank, the more they change the characters, the stupider it gets, and eventually we will stop watching these movies. Wait and see. You might. A lot of people might. I know a lot of people get burnt out on MCU and just superhero movies in general. I won't, because I love them that much. I will watch them as long as they put them out. Honestly, that's just me. Everyone tries to make the stories better, but they really can't. Yeah, I don't think making them better is the goal or should be the goal. I think making them different, making them fit a general audience that aren't comic book geeks is the goal, and that's the way that you reach a larger audience. And I think that's what they've done. And that's my personal opinion. You're entitled to yours. I'm 53 years old and read a lot of comic books, and I'm disgusted at what they did. And Chris, I'm not at all. Well, I get that. A lot of people are just fans of that classic storytelling in the comic books, and you want it to be like that. And I get it. I understand. I just disagree. I'm more open to change, and I think the runaway success of the MCU and how every movie breaks records kind of proves that the general public is cool with that too. Just saying. We don't need exact copy and paste, Chris says. It's not an exact copy of the comics. Yeah, I think there's a good balance you got to find. And I think they dip into the Ultimate Universe. I think they dip into the main Marvel Universe. They dip into various storylines, and they kind of piece things together. They take things that fit for the universe that they're building. It's just like how it's different in the TV shows, or it's different in the cartoons, or it's different in like the prose stuff that they do. Different in the video games. It's just a different medium, and I think most people can accept that it's just different. You got to do things a little differently to reach that mass audience and to make it make sense in a live action setting, because not everything translates well. As much as we say we would love to see these costumes exactly as they are on the page, sometimes you see that and it's like, wow, that looks really stupid. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes because of the way that they've built these films, you can't tell these stories in exactly the same way. Like something as big as the Secret Wars or Disassembled or the Kree Skrull War, you can't really do those exactly the same because, for one, those involved like a lot more characters than they have to work with in the MCU, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so you have to kind of focus that down. You have to kind of pick and choose which parts work for this universe that they built, which parts work for the characters that they have to work with, and kind of build it off that to be able to tell those stories. Otherwise, we're never going to get any version of those stories. And I would rather get some version of those stories than none at all. But that's, again, that's my personal take on it. But yeah, I thought this was a wonderful movie. Very few complaints about it. Like I said, it was mainly Pete's responsibility and Pete's stupidity in handing the glasses off that kind of bugged me a little bit. But everything else, the effects, the character development, the character interactions with him and MJ and him and Ned and Ned and Betty and everything in Flash. Flash, he's still not my favorite, this version of Flash. I love that he's a Spider-Man fan and that aspect of him, but I don't feel Flash Thompson in him. That's a minor complaint about his supporting cast. I still like Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. I think it's funny that she's younger and attractive and Happy's like hitting on her all the time. I think it's fun because Pete's much younger. I don't mind it. It doesn't throw me off. But let's see. Was there anything I missed? I don't think so. I love the implications going forward for the overall Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun seeing this play out, seeing if they do some kind of version of the Secret Invasion, which I would love. And I loved seeing Mysterio. I was nervous about how he was going to be handled on screen. I was nervous because it was like, you could do some cool stuff with illusions, but it's Mysterio, But they really did it justice, and it leaves me hopeful for what they can do with other characters going forward. We've seen a lot of missteps with Rhino and Electro, and I want to see something really cool. And if they build towards that Sinister Six, like they've talked about, that could be really something to watch. Let's see. Chris says the second Andrew Garfield did something, I forget what, and they canned his series. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people were fans of the way that Electro was handled in that movie, and again, Rhino. The villains weren't great in the Andrew Garfield movies, and I think a lot of people had a problem with his emo kind of Peter. I didn't. I liked the Andrew Garfield movies. I thought they were fine, but I do like Tom Holland better. I think Tom Holland's my favorite so far. I know a lot of people are Tobey Maguire all the way. And those first two Tobey Maguire movies were really good too, but I like Tom Holland. I think he's really solid as Pete. Let's see. First two ended because the director and the actors walked off set. Yeah. Even the Aladdin cartoon was better than the one they made, Honest Frank said. I have not seen the live action Aladdin yet. I really liked the Beauty and the Beast one. I thought that was really good. I have hopes for Aladdin. I like the actors involved in Aladdin, so I can't comment on it, though I haven't seen it yet. Chris said, you're missing a lot of comments in between. I'm trying to keep up with it, man. Let's see. See if I missed any. Chris said, I think this is a nice retelling. It's not an exact copy. Don't need copy and paste. Honest Frank said, if they followed original scripts, we all would love it better to see if it is real. You might love it better. A lot of people might love it better. A lot of older fans might love it better. I'm not that far below you age-wise. So, I've been reading comics for a long time myself, and I love it, and I think it's personal preference, and you have yours and I have mine, and I love the MCU as it is. Chris says Marvel's definitely doing it right. Now, Chris is a little bit younger, so, he comes from a different generation. Look who they chose for Captain America. Yeah, look who they chose for Captain America. Chris Evans was fantastic as Captain America. I don't know what you're saying. He was phenomenal. Um, he was made to play that role, I think. So I think Robert Downey Jr. was made to play Tony Stark. So we're agree to disagree on that one as well. Chris also says, excuse me, Chris Evans was amazing. Honest Frank says they keep changing Spider-Man actors, which is better than killing off characters like Iron Man. Well, I mean, yeah, like Chris was kind of alluding to, Tobey Maguire and all them, they didn't want to continue doing it. That's why they stopped. And then Andrew Garfield, those just didn't do that well. So they went in a different direction. Plus, they wanted to tie it into the larger MCU, so they went with a younger actor that they could build up from and could tie into that universe. And I think Tom Holland is amazing as, well, no pun intended, as Spider-Man. Honest Frank says Aladdin was nice, but could have been much better. Okay, that's fair. Can't expect them to hit the ball out of the park every time, right? I'm curious to see how they do Lion King as well. Chris says you can't keep things exactly doing the same always. All right, I think I caught most of the comments, right? So anyway, I'm probably going to wrap this up because Stranger Things, I believe, drops in about 10 minutes, and I want to watch the first episode. Maybe. I don't know. I'll probably have to wait because I think we're going to watch it with Lisa's brother tomorrow, but I know a lot of people want to check that out. Honest Frank says, don't agree to disagree with me because I'm almost always right. Well, you are entitled to your opinion that you are always right, Frank. In my opinion, you are wrong in this. So it's opinions, right? So in my opinion, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is phenomenal. I love every movie. I even liked Captain Marvel. I don't think it was the best of the MCU films, but I love Incredible Hulk too, with the Ed Norton one. I thought that was a great movie. That is like one of my go-to guilty pleasure ones where I watch, like, I think I've watched that movie more than any other MCU movie, to be honest. Even the Spider-Man ones, believe it or not. But yeah, those are my general thoughts on Spider-Man Far From Home. I thought it was a fantastic movie, and I want to see what they do next, because with Peter being outed now and he's public enemy number one, everybody knows who he is. It's gonna be very interesting because now you've got the Daily Bugle coming at him like it should be, and let's see. You can't explain things in chat. Okay. You will agree with me when we talk and I explain everything. I've heard of, I have a really good friend named Bill who is around your age, and he is like a hardcore old school comic fan. We used to do podcasts together, and he left comics. He stopped reading them because he was disgusted by what was happening and the change, and he wanted things, and he started reading his old comics again. And we had many discussions on that. And I disagree with him too, wholeheartedly. Not saying that everything in comics right now I'm enjoying or I agree with, or that everything in the films is perfect, but I do disagree that things should just stay the same, stay stagnant, and be just like they were. I think change is inevitable, change is important, and change is a good thing. And I don't mind the changes that the MCU has made, and I don't mind a lot of the changes that the comics have made. But that's my opinion, so you can have yours. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Thanks, Honest Frank. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone else that watches this live or post live. I appreciate it. Appreciate the conversation